Gambling is highly, highly addictive. It's also incredibly dangerous. As an addiction, it can be kept secret by the sufferer for many, many years, and quite often, by the time the addiction comes to light and by the time it can be acknowledged by those around the sufferer, the damage may already be too far gone and to such an extent that that person's life has been ruined, and in many cases gambling has been known to claim the lives, particularly of young men. Unfortunately, like alcohol, gambling is advertised and it's promoted as a fun, harmless and social activity, but the sufferers of gambling addiction know quite the contrary. Gambling is a secret, antisocial, highly addictive and very, very damaging addiction. The positive news is that you can, if you are suffering from this addiction, do something about it today. You can get yourself on the path to recovery and on the path to a better life. Whatever position you're in at the moment, there will be steps you can take immediately in order to prevent future gambling and in order to set yourself on that very path towards a better life. Take it from someone who knows and who's been there and seen it. It may feel fairly hopeless at the moment. You may be in a situation where you feel you are at rock bottom. You may not be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel, but please, if you have 10 minutes to spare or so, watch this video. Okay, and I will talk through the first things you should do if you wish to get into a recovery, if you wish to attack and take head on this addiction that is causing you misery, is causing you pain, and has ruined part or all of your life thus far. Okay, it doesn't need to continue. It can be stopped and you can be helped. Obviously, it would be remiss not to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you to everyone who continues to support this channel, helps me reach new people. Thank you to Jarrett, Gary and Nathan, my latest Patreons. It's good to see people from New Zealand, Canada, the US and across Europe embracing this channel and supporting this channel, as it is very, very good to see it's reaching so many people, but also alarming to see just how widespread this gambling pandemic has become. So thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel in whatever fashion that might be. Bit of a depressing start to that video. However, like I say, there is positive news. You can take steps today, immediately after watching this video, to set yourself on the right path for recovery and set yourself on the path for a much better, happier and stress-free future. The first step in gambling recovery is acceptance. You have to accept that this gambling addiction has got you beaten. You have to accept that without putting processes or support in place, you are unable to control your desire and your urges to gamble. This is not something to be ashamed about. This is something that is suffered by many, many people. The great benefit you have and the great advantage you have is that you have accepted it. Of course, the second thing to do is know that you want to stop gambling. Many of us, particularly those who have been gambling for many years and who have caused ourselves harm and relationship, financial damage, whatever it happens to be through gambling, knew many years ago that we had to do something about it. We knew that we had to stop or at the very least limit our gambling. However, the one thing we need to do before we are able to get into a proactive recovery and actually start putting ourselves on that path is to decide we want to stop gambling. The acknowledgement that we need to stop is not enough. We need to know that we want to change. We need to know that we deserve better in our lives, and we all deserve better in our lives than to be at the hands of this damaging and merciless addiction. Once we've decided we want to stop gambling, we can start putting blocks in place which will help us through the early stages of recovery. I'll take a step aside for one moment to talk about willpower. Many people, myself included, when we start off on our gambling recovery journey, the first time we decide we're going to stop gambling, we quite often naively believe that we can do this on our own. We often believe that it just takes the willpower not to gamble and we can, get ourselves on the path to recovery. Quite often we are fooled by this because we can do it via willpower alone for a day, a few days, a week, a month even. However, willpower in 99% of cases will simply not be enough. I'm sure there'll be someone in my comments who will tell me that they managed to quit on willpower alone, and if that's you, then good luck to you. But I know from experience and from those people around me that quitting using willpower alone is almost destined to fail in 99% of circumstances. More importantly, if there are tools, if there are proactive measures you can take to prevent yourself from gambling, then why would you rely on something as unproven as willpower? So once you've decided you want to stop, let's talk about the proactive things we can do. A lot of these will vary depending on the type of gambling that has become your poison, so to speak. However, even if a certain type of gambling hasn't been historically your poison, hasn't been something you've partaken in, then it may well be worth putting the blocks in place for that form of gambling, because the gambling brain, as I've spoken about many times before, is incredibly devious. Where you close one door, it will seek another door to get in to allow that same buzz, that same dopamine hit, albeit in a new and different format. I've never bet on a horse in my life. However, when I took the proactive steps to first stages of recovery, I ensured that I was banned from bookmakers. I ensured that I was blocked from online betting, because I accepted that the gambling brain would find new and devious routes to get that same hit. So what can you do? If your gambling is online, be that on the online casinos, on the online bookmakers, or any other form of online gambling, then I couldn't recommend GamStop highly enough. It's a short process, although you will need to provide ID, but if you go to the GamStop link in the description of this video, you can sign up in a few minutes, and that will prevent you from gambling online at all. That's your online bookmakers, your online casinos, the National Lottery, tombolas, anything like that. Any form of online gambling will become unavailable to you. This is the point at which you may find some resistance from the gambling demons in your head. You may look at that and think, right, minimum of 5 years period, whatever it is you want to sign up for. Okay, you may think, well, that seems quite extreme. That seems quite heavy-handed. I can never bet on anything online for the next 5 years or for longer. However, if you think about this rationally, this isn't the common sense part of your brain. This isn't your logical brain speaking. This is your gambling brain. This is your gambling demons talking, trying to leave that door ajar so that you are, in the future, able to partake in this addiction. And once you do, once that door is open again, then it will continue to perpetuate, and generally speaking, relapses are worse every time around. So you might find some psychological mental resistance to taking some of these steps. However, it's important to accept and acknowledge that this isn't your rational brain, the bit that wants and knows you need to quit gambling. This is your gambling brain trying to leave that door ajar so that you're able to act on future urges. So GamStop is a fantastic way of stopping you from gambling online. If you gamble in bricks and mortar premises such as casinos, bookmakers, arcades, then may I suggest the National Multi-Operator Self-Exclusion Scheme, which is a bit of a mouthful. I'll put a link again in the description below. This helps you to self-exclude from all gambling establishments, bricks and mortar gambling establishments. So you won't be able to go into bookmakers, casinos or arcades. Again, it's a relatively simple process, online, simple form with maybe a provision of ID, that sort of thing. Okay, but that will stop you from going into bricks and mortar premises to gamble. A few people have asked me about this previously and said, how effective is it? Now, I am part of the National Multi-Operator Exclusion Scheme. I can honestly say that I've not tested it, and the reason I've not tested it is because I don't want the embarrassment, the shame of being asked to leave a premises because I'm self-excluded. That is a practical block you can put in place, but also then serves as a psychological block. If you want to take this one step further, as I did, it's a good idea to maybe self-exclude yourself in the old school manual way from gambling establishments you currently use frequently. So local bookmakers, local casinos, local arcades. Go in there, ask to self-exclude. They may feel some resistance again to this. There may almost be an element of shame that you feel going in, asking for the form and providing generally you need to provide passport size photos. Don't need to be actual passport photos, you can print them off or whatever. There may be some element of shame and resistance to this. Just rest assured that firstly, you're not going to be the first person to go into that establishment and ask to self-exclude. But also, if they are regular staff in there, if they're staff you know or talk to, or do you know have seen you in there multiple times, they will not judge you for doing this. Quite to the contrary. If they have seen you walk in there and then walk out depressed and skint, if they've seen you in there more frequently than you should be at Wednesday afternoon when you should be working or whatever, then they will be almost pleased for you, if they feel anything at all, that you have decided to address this problem, that you have decided to take action on your addiction and take steps to get into recovery. And even all of that aside, you should never ever have to see these people again. So put your pride to one side, swallow the shame, accept that actually if they're going to think anything of you at all, which they probably won't, it will probably be positive, and take those steps to block yourself from those premises that you may visit most frequently. Block gambling transactions on your cards, be this credit cards, debit cards, whatever. Okay, I bank with online banks, Revolut, Monzo, that sort of thing. Okay, and you can if you've got one of those sort of type of account, go on the app, and most of them have the option to turn on the block for gambling transactions. It's a lot easier to turn on than it is off, which is fantastic. I'm sure the vast majority of mainstream high street banks probably have the same facility. How you sign up for it may differ, but if you just go onto their website and search the help for gambling, I'm sure there'll be advice on how to block gambling transactions from your cards. How this works: every retailer, every person who uses and processes card transactions has a unique identifying number. That identifying number is linked to the industry and the type of retail that they are in. So if you go and try and use your card in a bookmaker's or in a casino, it will flag up to the bank that that is a number registered to a gambling establishment, and the card payment won't go through. It's another way, another very, very proactive block you can put in place to stop yourself from gambling. Don't carry cash. That's the flip side of that, of course. If you don't carry cash and you can't use your card, you simply can't gamble. Now, of course, there are other blocks you can put into place, but going on from that last method of not carrying cash, put your finances in the hands of someone you trust. Ideally, this would be a spouse, a parent, a close family member, somebody you can trust implicitly, but hand over control of your finances to that person. Ensure, of course, that they understand the situation and that you're not going to be blocked from accessing your own money for regular expenditure. But just being answerable to someone for the expenditure of your own money makes it harder and harder to gamble. Withdrawing £50 to go up the pub on a Friday night is perfectly acceptable. Withdrawing £300 cash for no apparent reason is going to be questioned and is going to be another block to being able to gamble. And that takes me on to communication. Certainly in the early stages of recovery, communication is key. Talking about your addiction, coming clean about your addiction. It's most important to talk to those closest to you. Certainly those people who may be directly affected by your historic or current gambling. This is most likely if it's a spouse or someone that you share a joint account with, or for someone who you are financially responsible. Speak to these people, explain the situation. They will then be only too happy in being proactive in helping prevent you from gambling in the future. Aside from helping restrict your access to money, speaking to those people around you can form the basis of a strong support network when it comes to every stage of your recovery. Having people to speak to when urges arise, but also having the proactive support of those people closest to you, can help prevent gambling when urges do hit. It's beneficial in many respects to speak to almost as many people as will listen when it comes to getting into an active recovery. One of the people I spoke to, as an aside, was the landlord of my local pub. As I've spoken to about many times before, a lot of my gambling was done on machines, so that be bookmakers' machines, but also fruit machines and digital gaming machines in pubs. When I spoke to the landlord of my local pub, I asked him to ban me from said pub should he ever witness me gambling on the machines. Now, I'm not sure whether he would have actually taken this step had he witnessed me gamble, because it would have been a terrible decision from a business perspective. However, I then chose not to gamble in that establishment because the shame of going back on what I'd said, the shame of demonstrating a lack of willpower, was sufficient to prevent me from gambling. And to the same end, I also spoke to a lot of the regulars in the pub, the people I spoke to when I went in there, as they too would act as a separate set of eyes and ears to watch out for me gambling and help put the psychological blocks in place, if not the physical ones, to stop me from acting on any urges that may occur when I see the flashing lights in the corner of the pub. Communication can come in many forms, and it can be those closest to you, and it can be those on the extremities of your life, to whom you may feel more open and honest in talking to. If you don't feel you have anyone particularly close to you, then of course there are organisations and people that you can speak to who are specialists in gambling recovery. Of course, Gamblers Anonymous is an option for anyone who is suffering from a gambling addiction. I have spoken in the past about the misgivings I have with certain elements of the Gamblers Anonymous ethos. However, please don't let this take away from their efficacy. Gamblers Anonymous have saved metaphorically and I'm sure physically the lives of many, many gambling addicts. If you are trying to get into an active recovery, if you're trying to quit gambling, then I recommend trying whatever avenues are available to you. Gamblers Anonymous may not be for me, but it may well be the thing that works for you. And history and sheer facts and statistics would say that it has been the solution to many people's gambling addiction, and it has saved many, many lives. So if you haven't tried it, then try it. It's certainly lots of sets of eyes and ears that will listen to you, that will understand you, and will be there at every stage of your recovery journey. If you don't want to attend a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, or if you have done and you don't feel that that is right for your level of recovery, then there are organisations such as GamCare that you can speak to. Again, there will be a number and a website in the description below. Okay, but speak to someone, ideally those closest to you, but in all instances, speak to whoever will listen, because the more ears that listen, the more outlets you have when the urges strike, but also proactively, the more eyes and ears are open to help look out for you in times where you may be your weakest and you may be most vulnerable to the urges. Finally, the finances. Now, I've spoken many times, and I will reiterate now, that the financial damage caused by gambling is not the most important issue. The biggest loss you will have from gambling is time, and the finances are merely a symptom of the addiction. Trying to address your financial situation and redress the financial damage you've done prior to getting into recovery is a futile game. If you continue to gamble, as I spoke about in a recent video, if you continue to gamble, then there is no way that you are able to financially work. You can bust your ass at work, you can get a second job, you can start side hustles, you can do all of this, okay? You can have more and more money coming in, but you cannot outwork and you cannot out-earn a gambling addiction, because the more money that comes in, the more money goes out. All that happens is you end up more stressed and you end up less capable of actually dealing with the issue in hand, which is the addiction. It is, however, very important to address the financial situation you are in. It is very important to take stock of the financial situation you are in. Now, if you look through my channel, you will find videos on gambling debt and how to address and deal with gambling debt. So I'll pass you over to those videos for more in-depth information, but the important thing is to look at where you are, what you owe, who you owe it to. Okay, this may be a bit of an alarmist revolution. Okay, you may have in your head an idea of the amount of money you owe, and invariably it will become a greater, higher number than that. All right, so it will be a bit of a wake-up call. However, without addressing it, you continue to bury your head in the sand. And burying your head in the sand often involves distractions, crutches, vices, and, in this instance, gambling. So take stock of your financial situation, take the basic early steps to addressing that. So that will be things like payment plans, offers, all those sort of things. Speaking to your creditors, maybe speaking to debt management companies, that sort of thing. It's important to address this. It's important to take stock and to put the first steps in place to redressing your financial situation purely for your own mental well-being. The alleviation of stress that comes about from carrying debt, and a lot of that, like I say, will be unknown, unaddressed and unacknowledged debt, because we do have a tendency to use gambling and other vices to bury our heads in the sand and kick the can down the road in terms of, taking stock of our own situation. There will be stress that arises from that, but that stress can be lifted by taking stock of it, addressing it, and putting something in place so that we can sleep better at night and use our mental headspace to then focus on our recovery and other elements of our recovery. I hope this helps. Like I say, a very serious video, and it is all pretty much stuff I've spoken about before, but I wanted to sort of compile it. The channel's growing, lots more people following, which hopefully means it's reaching more and more people. But I think it was quite important to put this information together, and rather than just share my own experiences, to actually give information as to how you can start a recovery, because any day can be day one. Okay, it's a long process, but it can start now. And you could find, from today, you never have to gamble again. And for that, I wish you all the best. Please, stay safe, stay sane, as I always say. But, do what works for you. And if something doesn't work for you, try something else. But there are things you can do now, and I mean now, once this video ends, to make a better path for your future and just start to rebuild damage you've done. And, you will start to see that light at the end of the tunnel and enjoy the tunnel. The journey is rocky. It's not always, there will be good days, there'll be bad days, but you'll find the good days start to outweigh the bad days. So enjoy the journey to gambling recovery, and hopefully I can be part of that journey with you. All the best, guys. Please stay safe. All the rest.